Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Chat Show,
Welcome.
where we talk about empathy, employment, and innovation every Wednesday at 2 o'clock Eastern Time. Today's guest is Dr. McCool, whom I know one of the best Irish coffee maker in the world, and also an amazing human being with some amazing contribution to the autism community in the area of education and employment. With that, Dr. McCool, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Nish. It's great seeing you again.
Same here, same here. I remember those days when we went out and pitched on this amazing idea of synchronized holistic approach to teach children with autism in Las Vegas
Yeah.
with the Verizon Powerful Answer Award. So that's something which I really appreciate your subject matter expertise and how we share the idea. And this is for viewers that little bit of background where we partnered with Dr. McCool and put together this idea to teach children with autism. And we pitched this in a competition at Verizon Powerful Answer Award. And Dr. McCool was part of the team as a subject matter expert for to teach children with autism, and the technology part was built and developed by Rangam and our team. So, Dr. Makul, thank you for all your great work and your partnerships since 2010. So, for last 10
Yeah.
years.
Right.
So, how are you doing after you moved from New Jersey? How is the life in California? And tell us a little bit about what you do and your amazing
Well,
work in the area.
um, I moved back to Santa Barbara in 2014. Had some time, so I traveled to Ireland for 3 weeks and did a tour of um, autism programs in both Ireland and Northern Ireland. As a result of that, I was asked to put together a conference in 2015 of 5 autism societies: Ireland, Northern Ireland, Wales, Scotland, and the US. So we did that in January of 2015 in Belfast. It was a very interesting and exciting activity because these guys had global international impacts on the delivery of autism services. My wife and I did some house sitting in Italy and Tuscany for a month later that year. So we were in Ireland in January and Tuscany in October. We were there through Thanksgiving that year. So other than sort of traveling and recreating, a lot of time with my family. We have uh, right now, I guess in the last year, we've gotten two additional great grandchildren. Anders was given two brothers, Brooks, who's a real character, and they're all just very, very interesting kids. I have a lot of grandkids that come to visit. Now we're just doing Zoom
Yeah.
conferences, and so we're just having a time to do what we can.
Yeah.
5 years ago, I did start a business with Mike Reed, my business partner, called Active Steps, and it's grown steadily. We provide autism services in Ventura, uh, Riverside, and Orange counties, California. We have over 200 children that we're serving in their homes, all funded through insurance companies. Um, and so I think we're keeping busier than I thought we would that we would be at this point.
That's right. It's like, you were not busy for last 35 years. That is,
That's right.
not busy enough. So, Dr. McCool, you have this amazing journey of last 35 years. I know in 85, that's when you started your special needs education, career. And just share a little bit about, how you have seen this whole world changing. World of autism is just a very fascinating um, experience and stories I have heard. So please share with our audience what you have
Well,
seen.
before I do that, I forgot to mention Rocco. Rocco is my third great grandchild to go with all the grandchildren. So Rocco's and I've met both Rocco and Brooks, but haven't seen them for a long time. So I'm anxious to get back to Pennsylvania and see them. So, I basically graduated from college, Westchester University, as a as an English teacher. Got a job and really didn't like it, so I moved into special ed. Uh, Liked working with children with special needs. They seem to have, I sort of resonated more with them. Moved to Devereaux in Pennsylvania as a principal of a vocational high school for children diagnosed with mental health disorders. And during that time, I got introduced with autism because Devereaux had an autism program. A guy named Dr. Austin Delorier, who was one of the experts in autism uh, at that point, and I worked together on having the children with autism work with the children with mental health disorders. And right around that time, the mid '80s, uh, the uh, the whole approach to autism was that it was a mental health disorder, and it was caused by the mother. And that was completely overturned in the mid '80s when they did a autistic brain uh, autopsy and found out that it was a brain disorder and it was a disruption of brain cells. So that put the whole field of autism into a totally different perspective. So I moved from Devereaux to a Bancroft School in Haddonfield, New Jersey, and there I developed and established an autism special ed program. Brought in some consultants from UC Santa Barbara, and we got that program up and running. As a result of that, I was recruited by Devereaux to go back to Devereaux and establish an autism program in Santa Barbara. So that's what got me to Santa Barbara, and worked at Devereaux in California for about 20 years. The latter 5 years, I was in um, a national position working in government relations and fundraising. And part of our government relations was trying to influence legislation that would support people with autism as opposed to other disabilities. Um, so then, when I got to back to New Jersey, I went to work with Eden in 2005. I was asked to design and build an autism education center that was based on best practices, which were completely updated at that time. So it was a project we did with Princeton University, and we opened that school in October of 2013. While I was in New Jersey, I was able to do a couple of other things. Worked with the FMBA and the PBA, which is the firemen and the police unions, to establish a network for the firemen and policemen who had families impacted by autism would be able to have a resource, and we set that up with Eden. I also joined the board of the Irish American Business Chamber and Network. Bill McLaughlin had started that, and it was a networking organization. It still is. I'm still on their board, and we provide support for businesses. And part of the business support is hiring people with autism, so that employers will know that they can have good employees who are diagnosed with autism. Um, the other thing I did, obviously, we worked with you and the Colors program at Eden to try and make sure that we had a way to have children focus their attention on the learning, and so when their eyes would move and they would look away, you had a program that would bring them back and get them back engaged. So we know that attention to the programs and to the learning is really important for children with autism. Um, with Dr. Howard Savin and Joe Hess, we started a company called Autism Services Group. And this is one of the first groups that was able to work with insurance companies to provide behavior technicians that would serve children with autism, and that has grown. Now we've actually sold that to Beacon Health Services, and it's now a huge national company. So that was kind of interesting. I also had a great experience in May of 2011 testifying at a congressional hearing on the global aspects of autism. Chris Smith, our congressman in New Jersey, did the introductions, and we had a panel talking about how autism was a global epidemic. It wasn't just something focusing on the US. And it was at that meeting that I met Arlene Cassidy, who is the head of the Autism Society of Northern Ireland. And when I went to meet her, we worked on setting up that conference I mentioned earlier. So then I, came back here to California in 2014, did a lot of traveling, set up in 2015 a company called Active Steps. And Active Steps is what I mentioned. We're now in 3 counties, serving over 200 children, and really focusing on behavior. But we know that behavior eventually will hope to get these children employed. And so we're trying to get employment activities, skills that these children can learn and use to be a good employees. And I think that's something that we all want to see. So other than that, we're hanging loose with the COVID-19. I probably do 5 or 6 Zoom calls a week, and that keeps me off the streets and keeps me busy. One of the things that, again, came out of my communications in Ireland was I met a woman named Lisa Marie Clinton that you and I have been working with. And Lisa Marie has a company called Avail, and she uses Bluetooth technology to support adults with autism while they're employed, and she trains them. So she's operating in Ireland and the US, and so we're looking how to coordinate what she does with the educational programs we're doing at Active Steps, and I think that's going to be a good thing. And probably the most recent thing you and I have been working on, along with Mike Reed, is the Autism Center in Nepal. There's a school in Kathmandu that is struggling, so we're helping to provide them with access to the internet, tablets, and then Mike Reed's company, Innovative Learning, has the College of Applied Human Services, so they are able to provide the training free to the teachers and the behavior technicians in Nepal. So yeah, a lot going on.
Yes. So this is so wonderful, and thank you for sharing your journey, life journey, and your amazing contribution to the autism community. So considering all your very vast experience, very diverse experience with pretty much all different phases of challenges related to autism and employment. What are the 3 dimensions to empathy in your views as they relate to autism, education, and employment? Share your thoughts. What do you mean by these 3 dimensions?
Well, I mean, empathy, everybody just is feeling sorry for someone, and it really isn't. It's really walking in their shoes and feeling what they feel. And so what empathy allows you to do is to recognize what they really need, not what they think they need in some cases. And so what I look at is obviously having the ability to listen, to understand, and to support the people that you're working with. And one of the real issues today is that we have a huge increase of people diagnosed with autism. That creates the need for a huge workforce of people with specific behavioral training in autism. And how do you know if someone is going to be a good behavior technician or support person working with children and adults with autism and moving them to the point where they can be employed? And so Obviously, there are great evidence-based topics of learning, skills that people need to have. But that intangible is, how do you know if they're going to be a good employee? And again, Mike Reed at Innovative Learning has a screening called Full Potential. And full potential is based on the Briggs-Myers scales. But what we try and do at Active Steps, because we use this, when someone applies to our program, in addition to the regular information, we ask questions that help give us an idea of what their basic values are, what their philosophies are, and do they understand advocacy? They're there to advocate for people, not to be in charge of them and tell them what to do. We want to know that they have access to the right information, and we also want to know what kind of personality traits they have to be suited. There are specific personality traits that have been shown to be more successful in working with people with autism, and we try and take a look at that. So from that perspective, we see that screening tool as being very effective. I think on a broader scale, most of the time, people are deemed to be qualified by having some kind of a credential or a certificate. And so the Behavior Analyst Certification Board for years has been that organization that deems people to be good or not good in terms of presenting services. But we're finding out that's not really enough. And so we see more programs that are allowing us to train people, to give them the skills that they need, and to verify that through a credential. So we at Active Steps, we use the Innovative Learning Behavior Tech Level 1 certificate, and that's validated by an international accreditation. So an outside organization comes in and accredits that. So we look at that. That is then approved by insurance companies so that they know the person providing the services they're paying for is duly qualified. And I think that's the struggle for the future, is how do we know that the people working with adults with autism and children with autism are really qualified, and that qualification enables them to move these adults with autism into viable employment.
Yeah, no, that is so important, and combination of empathy and expertise. That's what you just touched upon. Is empathy is how in three dimensions of empathy in the area of listening, understanding, and supporting, providing that support. Every phase there is a role of empathy, and there is a need of empathy. And when it comes to the professionals who is serving individuals on the spectrum, either children or adults on the spectrum for jobs, that experience and expertise is so important. And what we have seen, that with no like bad intention, but when you don't know something and when you are working with
That's
the,
right.
individuals with autism, you can really means without any intention you can hurt somebody, because it is sensitive topic, it is complex topic. So it is so important that all your work in this area of accreditation of professionals. And globally there is a huge need, and parents are like, as a parent we are depending on this professional. So share your thoughts why this is so important.
Well, you only get a limited number of chances to work with someone and improve their behavior. And there is no blood test or anything to tell what the child has autism. So it's all observational, it's all behavioral. And so if a person comes in with the right skill set of working with someone, that's only half of the battle. They really need to have that empathy that says, I'm going to be doing this, even though it's hard, even though he may be fighting me, he may be kicking me, or biting me or whatever. but I'm doing it for the greater good of that individual. I also wanted to mention, I think technology has now emerged as an enormous help in this effort. One of the results of COVID-19 has been the expansion of telehealth services into the behavioral health arena. And what we have found at Active Steps is that many of the families that they have to be at home when our staff come in, but sometimes they won't be involved. They'll do other things. When we do telehealth services, more of the families are involved. They have to be sitting there. So our behavior technician is talking to them through video. That's really been very helpful to get parents more involved. The second thing is we're able to use Zoom and other Google Hangouts to do social group kinds of things with 6 children on a Zoom call and get them engaged in social activities, socialization activities. So I think we're going to be looking at more and more technology. One of the things that Lisa Marie Clinton has been using is Bluetooth technology, where once she trains someone to be employed, then the person supporting that adult with autism who is trained and who is working to to give them coaching through Bluetooth technology. They don't have to have hands on. They can fade themselves further and further away, and then they can monitor them through a telehealth or a video conference kind of thing, just to make sure that they're doing things. So it's really important that the people who are providing those services are actually providing those services. And the supervision of those services is really important because, in many cases, someone could not be doing what they're supposed to do. And you have to believe that people are doing what they're supposed to do, but you also have an obligation to make sure that somebody is checking on that to make sure they do what they're supposed to do. And you can usually tell if they're doing that by the increase in progress of the individual that's being served.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So technology is really changing lot of things when it comes to special needs education and employment. And in our case, as you know, I'm working on this new product which we are launching, Sourceable. How do we make this all complex or manage this complex processes of hiring processes into a more formal, efficient, tech-driven system? So it's not only just helping us track, but manage and maintain and run these reports and analytics and get better. Because cost is everything when it comes to either teaching children with special needs or children on the spectrum, or helping them find the meaningful job. The cost is one of the factor which
Right.
think technology can help. So thank you for sharing some of the great innovative things happening in this space. In your view, and I know you also mentioned, tell us a little bit about some of the countries like Nepal, where you are working on some of the initiatives, how technology is going to help them. Because in US, in my view, is we have good enough in good quality infrastructure. Of course, there is always room for improvement and get better. But some of the countries like Nepal, where they don't have
Yeah.
anything. So, what is that project? Just tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I mean, I think it's yeah, a friend of ours, Stacy Corliss, who's very active with Autism Speaks. I think went to a wedding in Nepal, met some people, and then she introduced Mike Reed and I to them, and it was like stepping back 30 years, 40 years to where they are. The woman that we're working with, actually, when her child was diagnosed 12 years ago, there was nothing. So she left the country, went to New Zealand, and became a trained teacher for children with autism, moved back to Nepal, and then started her own school. So I think what we are able to do, again, if we can get this through to them, their internet access is very expensive for them. relatively inexpensive for us. So we can provide them with internet access, high-speed internet access for about $500 a year.
Right.
So Active Steps has taken that step and said we will provide that. That's no good unless they can access something. So we're now working with them to get the tablets, the iPads, whatever they want to get, so that they can connect to the internet. That's a great step. Now, what do they connect to? So we're pointing them in the direction of the College of Applied Human Services, which is an innovative learning company, which has all of these training courses that lead to the ANSI certification as a behavior technician. So it's a step-by-step process.
Yeah.
Now, their school is closed because of COVID-19.
Yeah.
So what we're trying to do now is have the school get the internet in there and then schedule teachers to come in random times where they can access the internet and then get this training while the school is closed. And then they can also use some of this technology to work with the children in the homes, like we're doing in Orange County and Ventura County and Riverside County here in the US. So the technology, I think, is going to be a huge breakthrough for them and probably move them forward 20 years in a year.
Yeah, I mean, it's technology. This is like literally what you are doing in my view, is you are giving wings to the expertise which we have here to the countries where there is really need, and building this professional network of teachers and other professionals serving the autism community is so important, because that knowledge is just it is doesn't it's very difficult to find in some of the countries. So
Right.
thank you for doing and contributing and playing really a role of a true global leader and making an impact on hundreds and thousands and hundreds of thousands of lives and families. So thank you for doing that. Before we close, we have a few minutes left. I would really like to touch base on some of the futuristic view, your view on the in-school services. How is the in-school services looks like in coming future, and how that is going to help the employment? If you can share your thoughts on future.
Sure. Again, we have the COVID-19 has moved us in a different direction. When my granddaughter Allison was here recently, she went to school. She lives in Santa Rosa, but she was able to go to school using the computer. And I think there are some downsides to that, but I think it also has some really upsides because she's communicating with her classroom. You can see them all. The teacher is there. You can see the teacher. I think this is going to be something that we're going to be able to do much better in the future and engage people a little bit more. I think our experiences with social skills training using computers is also something that we can build on. I think it needs to be paired with that personal connection. And that's something that we hope we'll be able to do very shortly. We don't really know. But I think one of the things that we have to do is, as you mentioned, uh, gather data that tells us if we are moving in the right direction, if we're being successful. If we're not, what courses do we need to change? How do we navigate through that whole system? Because unless something else happens, we're going to see more and more children diagnosed with autism. Those children are going to be adults diagnosed with autism, and we have to look at employing as many of those people as we can, not just at the higher level, but those at the middle and more behavioral level.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's excellent. Thank you for sharing your views. One more last quick thought, if you can share. How will the evidence-based education and training impact the future of employment for people on the spectrum? As you know, employment is Rangam's mission to promote employment for everyone. So this is the question which we always think and figure out how this education and training will really help us build the future workforce of the spectrum.
Well, I think it's going to be a combination of technology and personal connection. It's going to have require those two things, because I think we can provide people um, with the knowledge and support to go into the workplace and perform the tasks. I've talked to some people who work for um, Amazon in the warehouses, and they're ideal jobs for people with the same characteristics as people with autism. It's a steady, repetitive, high quality. You need to get the right things, but I think they can't be isolated. There have to be opportunities in the work site for people to connect and get supported. And that means the people in the work who are not autistic need to have a better understanding and get back to that word empathy for the coworkers that they have who do have autism.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. McCool. I really appreciate your time and you sharing your expertise and your wisdom and your views on future, how individuals on the spectrum, how valuable resources I call this untapped talent. And in order to bring this untapped talent, we really need to work in a three-dimensional holistic and empathetic way to help them find those meaningful jobs. First is prepare them for work and find those jobs and then help them
Right.
be successful at work. So thank you again. Thank
You're
you so
welcome.
much for your share. I really look forward for our reunion in Las Vegas in 2021 if
We'll
everything
be there.
we
We'll
will
be
have
there.
a union of Verizon Powerful Answer team and wishing you and your family all the best. Stay safe, stay healthy. Thank you, everyone, for joining today's session. And we will continue our conversation next week, same time, same day, talking about empathy and innovation and employment.
Great.
Thank,
Thank you. Take
thank
care.
you. Take care. Bye bye.
Bye bye.